Thank you, all of you, for being here with us for this inaugural event for the Asian Society at the Movies. It is really my pleasure and honor to introduce a filmmaker and a film to you tonight that is really one of the most interesting films I've seen in my life, and I mean that in all sincerity. I'm going to give you a tiny glimpse of it. It's called Better Days, and here's the trailer.
那你想怎么样？
读书、考试、上好学校，想变成最聪明的人。如果可以的话，保护世界。
没电上课了。
高考完，我就变成大人了，但是从来没有一节课教过我如何变成大人。
有完没完？
做得到吗？
想试试。
那说好了。 你保护世界，我保护你。
That's just a little glimpse of a really extraordinary movie that you can't help but be incredibly touched by for so many reasons. So let me bring on the director now. From, I believe, Hong Kong, where he is, Derek Tsang.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Janet.
Hi. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi.
I saw this movie sometime last year, and I was incredibly moved. And it was really phenomenal for so many reasons. It was very emotional, very gritty. Mm-hmm. It had a lot of drama, a lot of action, but most of all, what I felt, and I may or may not be a good judge of this, but it felt incredibly authentic to China and situations and very complex society. You are Hong Kong born and raised. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to make this movie.
I've always been very intrigued by bullying. I mean, I've always wanted to make a film that deals with bullying, because ever since the prevalence of smartphones, like around the late 2000, there's all these prevalence of, online videos that you can find that's just brutal to watch. I was very lucky as a kid when I was growing up. I've never really witnessed anything that serious in terms of bullying. I mean, there's always been like taunting and minor bullying, but I've never seen anything very serious. So when smartphone came around, and when, with all these social media platforms, when you see all these videos of kids just doing these brutal things to each other, it got me really intrigued, and it just really shocked me. And I've always wanted to make a film that, kind of addressed the issues. And so throughout all these years, I've always been looking for a story or an angle to kind of tell the story. And it was right after we finished shooting Soulmate that my producer passed me this novel, and she's like, "Oh, have a look, we'll see whether you'd be interested." And I read it in one night, and I right after when I read it, I was like, "Oh, this is the story that I really wanted to make. This is the story that I've been waiting for all along." So that's basically the basis of where the film Better Days came from. And like you said, there's a lot that we really injected into the story. We took a lot of liberty on adapting the novel, and basically put my own observation of what's going on in contemporary China into the film.
For those who haven't yet seen the movie, it's really about a very interesting, deep, unlikely friendship between a high schooler who's in the throes of trying to pass her college entrance exam. She's a very good student, so there's a lot of pressure, as there is for all students. But she ends up befriending a young man who's kind of an outlier of society. It would be an unlikely friendship, but what I found so incredibly moving is that you portrayed this friendship in such a realistic, authentic way, even though they come from opposite ends of society. And clearly Chinese audiences responded so well because they're both outside the norm. Even there's so much pressure for both of them to try to conform, and they found each other and brought each other a lot of comfort, but they had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations in the process. Was it surprising to you? What was it like to try to, when I was watching the film the first time, I thought, how did this ever pass censorship? I normally don't talk about censorship because I think the Western media is too obsessed with it, and it is often too broad a stroke to talk about a lot of things. But in this case, it truly was a surprise because it shows a really dark side of some of the things that are going on today in Chinese society, and does so realistically. So you can't say that it was a fantasy or just something that is just a morality tale. It really felt very, very real. What was that like to present this to the authorities?
Well, to be honest, like at the very beginning, I think everybody was telling us, it's not passable in terms of censorship. So we were speaking to a lot of people, and a lot of people were honestly telling us not to pursue this story because they felt like it's not something that is like you said, censor friendly. So it's going to be a very hard film to pass through. But I like to say that it's that we're very idealistic. Me and my producer, we really believe that the story there's something about this story that needs to be told, and we do believe that people would be convinced by the film once they've seen it. So we went along with it. We sort of just disregarded what all the advice that were told by everyone, and we went along with it. And then we're very fortunate because along the way there's been a lot of people that really helped our film, even people in the censorship board. I mean we're very grateful that they saw the film as something that is very important. There's a very important message in the film that they felt like needs to be put out and needs to be viewed by the audience. So even though, like you said, censorship, it's the rule of the game. All Chinese directors have to go through the same thing. But when there's a positive message in a film, I do feel like people would really want to be protective of your film, and really want to help your film get viewed and push along and be seen by the audiences. So in the end, I'm very grateful that a lot of people helped out and helped us put the film out there for people to be seen.
Yes, and I think it does show that it's not always what you expect, right? This conversation reminds me a lot of one I had a few years ago with Chiu on the film 我不是药神, Dying to See a Light. That was also an incredible depiction of the story of something very somewhat scandalous that was going on in China. But I think as long as, a lot of it's how it's framed, right? I think for the government to be able to say, we recognize that bullying is a problem. This is what we're doing about it. Just like we recognize how overpriced medication is a problem. So it can work in their favor, but it still takes, I think, special individuals to carry that mantle. I know one of your executive producers is Peter Chan, who's also an incredible filmmaker, your producer Jojo. So I think there probably is no better company to produce this film because you need someone who understands the ropes, right? How to navigate the system, but also have that artistic vision. So I'm glad it made it through. So you went ahead and made the film without knowing what was going to happen exactly. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think another very important thing is, and it's also one of the happiest thing for me as a filmmaker, when the film was out, that it really affected a lot of filmmakers in China. They felt like it's very important not to self-censor. I think that's something that is as a creative person, as a director, as a filmmaker, it's very important to really go along with your original idea and not be deterred because it might not pass censorship. I mean, that kind of self-censorship really do hurt a lot, I think, in terms of creativity. So one of the things that a lot of filmmakers, after they've seen the film, they're really appreciative is because we really didn't censor ourselves when we were writing the film. So that's something that's, I think it's very encouraging when I get these response from fellow filmmakers from China. So it's also one of the things that we thought, it's what I felt like we achieved the most is because we did encourage a lot of young filmmakers to really just, follow their heart, do what you believe in. I think that's something that I was really, really happy about.
Mm. Tell me a little bit about what it was like working with Zhou Dongyu and Jackson Yi. Did you have them in mind? They're so perfectly suited to those roles. I know you worked with her before, and so did you have her in mind right away, or did you search for other possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, like at the very beginning, like at the back of our mind, we always know that she's the one that we're gonna go to in the end. But we just really wanted to, just have the benefit of the doubt, just really try to cast a lot of different actresses. So we did have a very long and rigorous period of casting for both the role of Chen Nian and the role of Xiaobei. So we did we were casting for these two roles for like a year and a half. So we did met a lot of young up and coming actor and actresses in China. But I think in the back of our mind, Zhou Dongyu is always the one that we're gonna go to in the end. So it proved. Yeah. So I think it proved in the end that she is the perfect choice for playing the role of Chen Nian. But it's very different in terms of working with her. Like you said, it's my second time working with her this time, and it's very different in the sense that in Soulmate, where we were shooting our first film working together, I really encouraged her to be herself because I really want to capture who she is as a person. And so on set, while we were shooting, I always encouraged her to just be yourself, because I really wanted to showcase her own personality on screen. But this time with Better Days, I wanted to make sure that the audience can see a different side of her. So the thing that I said to her the most on set is, I don't want Zhou Dongyu. That there you are again. I don't want you. I don't want that. I don't want Zhou Dongyu on set. So basically, I really tried to show her in the right. So it's a very subdued, it's a very repressed kind of acting for her. So it took her a while to get used to. I mean, she even said in a lot of interviews that this is the toughest shoot she's ever been in. So it was very tough for her because not only was she really repressing her own true self, but also while we're shooting, if you've seen the film, she's always, every day on set, she's either being beaten on, pushed around, being taunted on. So it was a very tough shoot. But I mean, I think that the toughness of the shoot really helped her to get into character. Because it took her a while to really understand Chen Nian, because she is someone that is completely different from that. I mean, she would not take anything from anybody. If you push her, she would bite back. She's that kind of people. But but Chen Nian just really have to bear all that she bear all the responsibility of her own future, of her family's future. So she really just had all this weight on her back. And Dongyu it took her a while to understand why she have to bear all that, why she have to bite through all that. But in the end, she after I would say 1/3 through the shoot, she really did get into character, and she was from that on, she was really autopilot. I didn't have to direct her a lot. And then for Jackson, I've always said that I'm very fortunate to have Jackson. We're very fortunate to have. It's because it's his debut film as an actor. So I think we're very fortunate to capture that moment of his life, that very, very nuanced age where he's gonna capacity into from teenage into adult. So it's a very, you know, it's very nuanced kind of age.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate to capture that period of his life. And you know, he's a very interesting kid, because you know, if anybody who have been following his career, he started, you know, as a member of a boy band since he was 13. And you know, now that he's when we were shooting the film, he wasn't even 18 yet. He was almost 17. So but you know, even though he's very young, but he's been through a lot, because he started in the business when he was 13. So he brought with himself a lot of empathy and a lot of sensitivity that is rare for people in his age. And he is very much he loved the story a lot, and particularly the character of Xiaobei. There's a lot that he can relate to. So it really didn't require me for a lot of explanation, a lot of, you know, convincing for him to understand the role of Xiaobei. I mean, I think from the day one, he was very understanding of what the character is, what he has been through. So it was very easy for him to be in the role. And I mean, like, right on from day one when we were shooting, he was very much in character already. So it's something that, you know, still bewilders me this day, like how professional he is, how quick he was to get inside the character.
Well, both of
but
them.
But it's interesting to say, you know, I've mentioned it in past interview that, you know, when I first met him, I didn't feel like he was right for the character, because when I first met him, it was in, I think, the summer of 2007. And he still seemed like a kid to me. Like, he still seemed like he hasn't passed through his puberty. He's still in that awkward, you know, that passage from puberty to teenager. So it didn't feel like he could play a teen in his in the age of 18, or, you know, that a rebellious kid in the age of 18. And it was really like a year later that I by accident I saw one of his photo, and I was really shocked, because like, he's completely grown up. And I was just like, wow, like, you know, there's something in his eyes that really just captured me in that photo. So that was like, well, I told my producer, I'm like, okay, we meet him again, because he seems completely different a year ago. So we met him again, and it's just like, from that day on, we just felt like it's so right. He is Xiaobei. So that's you know, that's when we really felt like he could play that character.
Well, both of them, I have to say, Zhou Dongyu, because she's already a star, and Jackson Lee in particular, who is huge, right? It's just huge as a singer and has this massive fan base. They both really disappeared into their roles, into, again, these very stripped down roles where they're so raw, so very convincing as those individuals. That's, just kudos on that front.
Thank you.
What would you most like people to take away after watching this film?
I want people to remember the kindness of the film instead of the cruelty. I mean, it's easy to dwell on the cruelty of the film, that, you know, that there are, you know, kids out there that are able to do that kind of things to people. But what we want to convey with the film is, you know, there are kindness. There's always that different side, the flip side of the story. There's always that kindness that do exist in our society, in our times. I mean, the kindness that, you know, Xiaobei has given to Chen Yan, and the kindness that Chen Yan have given to even, I would say, to the people that bully her. So I do believe that, you know, there's always kindness in around us. So it's easy to dwell on the cruelty, but in the end, I think kindness always triumphs.
That's a beautiful message. And I think you are left with that feeling of hope, you know, and also how one person can affect another person's life so deeply. What is your whole background is so fascinating. I know you don't want to talk about it too much. You are the son of a very famous actor, but one who worked in a genre that's completely different, that's very typical of Hong Kong, very slapstick comedy, huge star. And you've chosen this completely different path. And also, again, deciding to make a film about mainland China. I have, for decades now, wanted so much to celebrate and really elevate more Asian filmmakers from China, Hong Kong, and the rest of Asia. What do you see as the future of Chinese cinema? Do you have any thoughts about where you'd like to see it going and what people can do to better support all these wonderful films that are coming up? They still have a hard time gaining traction outside Asia in many cases. And it's a sore point for me. Is there something in particular that you'd recommend, especially to this audience, which is likely to be very friendly to Asian cinema?
Okay. Well, first a bit on my own background. I was born and raised in Hong Kong until I was 12, 11. Yeah, and then I moved to Canada. So I've been brought up in North America. So I kind of have this very different kind of point of view and values from a lot of my contemporary Hong Kong filmmakers. So, I think it's because I've been moving around a lot as a kid that I kind of do have that sense of that I do bend in better than maybe some of my contemporary filmmakers. So when I have this opportunity to make a film in China, I don't have this this sense of me being a Hong Kong filmmaker. I just felt like, I'm a filmmaker. I'm making a film about, contemporary Chinese citizen or contemporary Chinese students. So I don't have my own values or my own way of seeing things. I really want to step in their shoes and see things from their point of view. So, I'm very empathetic in that way. So I am very willing to talk to the people that I'm making a film about. And we did a long time, like a really extensive research on, whether the students or, people that are bullied, people that went through Gaokao, because Gaokao is another thing that really intrigued me. Like I said, I didn't study in China. So when I first started working in China and learned about Gaokao, the whole phenomenon of Gaokao, the whole college entrance examination in China, I was just really intrigued because it's such a high pressured, it's such a make or break chance for a lot of people that it was really shocking for me, and it's something that it really very interesting for me. So when we decided to do this film, I really wanted to make Gaokao to be a big element, to be the backbone of this film, to really, let the audience, even because I know this film is going to be not just for Chinese audience only. I wanted to make sure that the film could travel well and speak to a lot of people outside of China. So I wanted really to showcase, this whole phenomenon, this whole how high pressure it is for the kids in Gaokao. So that's something that I really wanted to make in the film. And, a lot of my contemporary Chinese filmmakers, friends, they tell me that, it is because of I haven't studied in China that I was willing to make Gaokao into such a realistic portrayal of Gaokao, because they told me is because they've been through it. They don't think that they don't make the film that way because it's something that they all been through. They don't think there's anything to talk about, so they wouldn't really shoot it that realistically. But being someone that haven't been through it, something that found it very, very intriguing, I was able to portray it very realistically for people to understand what it's all about. So, and then now back to the question of, how I see Chinese cinema. I'm very optimistic in terms of where it's going, and in terms of the talents that are around. I mean, like I've seen a lot of really talented young Chinese filmmakers that are making their films, whether they're the debut film or whatnot. They are people that really inspired me. I mean, there are a lot of really, really talented young filmmakers now in China that are popping up. There's a film festival called First in China, and that's a film festival that I go to all the time to watch new and upcoming Chinese filmmaker talent. And the talent that's coming out of that festival and coming out of China is just really promising. But one thing that I do feel like, one thing that I do talk to them a lot about is, you know, I try to tell everybody that, you know, we have to have a wider scope. Yes, we're making films that is Chinese content, that is off Chinese content, that is about a Chinese story, but we can broaden our scope so that, you know, everyone in the world can understand that story, instead of being very just localized, being just only Chinese audience can understand. I do feel like a lot of times, just not just for China filmmakers, also for Hong Kong filmmakers as well. You know, we are a global citizen. I do believe that there are a lot of things that can travel very well, you know, across different culture, across different countries. So I do think that, you know, a lot of times when we're making films, we do have to have that global, that wide perspective to make films that have people from different countries, different cultures that they can all understand and be empathetic, be able to feel that kind of story and emotion. Yeah.
The emotions and really the shared humanity.
Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect bridge, perhaps, because sometimes it does take a little bit of an outsider status to see things.
Mm-hmm.
We're not traumatized by Gaokao, so you can make it
exactly.
for a lot of people, like, why would I want to go back there? But no, it does help to have a bit of an outsider status, and you're an international citizen, so you're a really just an ideal filmmaker to reveal a lot of the things about Chinese society that people wouldn't otherwise know. So I guess my final question is, what do you have planned for your future? You're such a wonderfully talented and unique filmmaker. Where do you see yourself going now? Do you have some projects in particular that you can talk about?
Yeah, well, I've a project that I'm developing right now. I've a few projects that we're developing, but one of the one that I can talk about that I feel like is more mature and something that I'm hoping that I can start shooting later this year is about Southeast Asian in Hong Kong. Because that's been a phenomenon going on lately in Hong Kong. For the past 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of South Asian refugees in Hong Kong. They're from India, Pakistan, Sri Lankans, just from Southeast Asia. The reason being is Hong Kong government has this agreement with the UN that we have to take in asylum seekers from everywhere. So recently, for the past 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of Southeast Asian refugees in Hong Kong, but the Hong Kong government, they wouldn't allow them to work. They are given this very basic, very low subsidy, and it's not even enough to pay rent in Hong Kong, because everybody knows that rent in Hong Kong is crazy. So what you ended up with, it's a situation where there are a lot of these Southeast Asian, refugees stuck here, because a lot of them, they came to Hong Kong thinking that they can use Hong Kong as a springboard to help them move to the States, Canada, or Australia. So what happened is a lot of these people are stuck in Hong Kong for a long period of time without the opportunity to work. So what happened is a lot of them ended up working for triads. They ended up working for gangster, and there's been a lot of bad press about Southeast Asian gangs, Southeast Asian men in Hong Kong, doing a lot of the dirty works for the triads. They get into fights, they deal drugs, they rob people. So I just felt like there's always a different side to this story. So I've been doing research for the past couple of years just trying to tell their side of story. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, because there's been a lot of bad press, and I do feel like there's always their side of story as well. So that's something that I'm working on lately, that I'm hoping that I can get across later on this year. Yeah.
Well, I know many of us would very much look forward to anything that you do, especially Hong Kong is so much in the news today, and we have no time to talk about all of this, but anything that helps us understand Hong Kong better, I think, would be most welcome. Derek, you've been so kind to spend this time with us. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Janet.
I wept a second time. It's so incredibly deeply moving, and so we really appreciate your work.
Thank you. And I'd like to say thanks to Asia Society for hosting me and screening our film. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for watching this. Thank you.
All right. Now I'm going to pass the torch on to Charlie Cooker, the Executive Director of Asia Society Southern California.
Bye, Janet. Thank you.
About bullying. Bye.
Thank you, Derek and Janet, for an amazing discussion about this remarkable film. I'm Charlie Coker, Executive Director of Asia Society Southern California, and I'd like to welcome you tonight. I'd like to also thank our partners at Asian World Film Festival for their amazing collaboration during this process. I'd also like to thank Act to Change for putting together and working with us to organize this amazing panel that will follow. I'd also like to thank Asia Society Hong Kong for their assistance with this program as well. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the moderator for our next panel. Allyn Hoang is an Emmy Award-winning journalist. She has more than a decade of experience in television news. She's hosted, anchored, and reported for outlets including NBC, the CW, and E! News Now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Allyn Hoang.
Hi there. Thank you very much, Charlie. Hi, you guys. I am so excited to be here this evening and welcome you all to the Asia Society at the Movie series featuring the film Better Days. Now, this program is in collaboration with Act to Change, which is a national nonprofit organization working on addressing bullying in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And you guys, this partnership makes total sense, right? Given the anti-bullying theme of this powerful film, we wanted to provide a space for Asian American youth to talk about what it's like to grow up in America, and especially during a pandemic where we've seen an increase in incidents of bigotry and violence against the AAPI community. Not to mention with the current political climate, this that has made it increasingly unsafe for marginalized communities like our own. Now, with that said, we are ready to kick off a thoughtful and productive conversation with our amazing, well-rounded, star-studded panelists this evening. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our panelists, Celia Au, Hudson Yang, Dr. Jamie Chiu, and Haddie Watson. Hi, you guys.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Okay, so how about before we kick off this panel, I'd love everyone to give a 30-second brief intro about yourself. So let's kick it off with Celia.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Celia Au. I'm an actress based here in New York City. My most recent show you might see me on is Wu Assassins on Netflix, Lodge 49 on AMC. And I did an episode of Nora from Queens. Is that 30 seconds?
That's amazing. We love how you are representing Asian Americans in the mainstream media. That is incredibly important. Okay, next up, Hudson. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Hudson Yang. I haven't done a lot, but I'm probably most known for my role on Fresh Off the Boat as Allyn Hoang. I'm also a big part of Act to Change. I'm on the board, and I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Hudson. And also, congratulations. We heard you just got into Harvard. Way to represent. All right, next up, Dr. Jamie Chiu. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Jamie Chiu. I'm a clinical psychologist from Hong Kong, and I'm also the founder of the Brightly Project, where we work with schools to help them identify students who might be struggling with mental health issues so that they can then be connected to a caring adult at their school.
Incredible, meaningful work. Thank you, Dr. Chiu. And last but not least, we have 11-year-old Haddie Watson. Hi, Haddie.
Hi, my name is Haddie Watson, she, her, and I'm 11 years old. And I go to Kansas City Girls Preparatory Academy here in Missouri. And I really love reading inclusive books.
Wonderful. We are so excited to have all of you guys here this evening. Now, as you guys saw in the last panel with Janet and the director of the movie Better Days, the film exposes the dark world of bullying and societal pressures of achievements facing today's youth. So with that said, I want to point the first question to both Celia and Hudson. I know you guys both spent time growing up in the U.S. Did you guys experience bullying growing up? And if so, how did you guys get through it? Hudson.
I mean, it's kind of inevitable. I think at some point in everyone's life, you're going to go through some sort of bullying, and it's kind of sad that way. I went through a good amount of bullying when I was in New York. That's where I grew up, at a school called Nest+M in Manhattan. And all I remember was that it was a really rough time for me. I kind of was bullied because of my weight, because I was Asian, and a bunch of other reasons I just don't even want to think about. But I think the main way I got through it was I had a lot of people supporting me, like my family. I had friends, and I had people who defended me all the way through it. And because of that, I was kind of able to, get over the fact that get over my insecurities, people making fun of. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So what were some effective strategies that helped you combat bullying? Because that certainly isn't an easy situation to be in.
I mean, it's tough. I don't think I really ever had a perfect strategy to stop bullying against me. Often whenever I tried to stand up for myself, things would get more physical than I'd like. And I was pushed around. One of my friends tried to stand up and stop them, and he got shoved down a staircase. And had his hair pulled out and stuff like that for real. It's kind of scary. For me, the one thing I could do was talk to my counselor. Even though there wasn't a lot she can do because there was no real proof, she was there to she talked to the other kids, and she had us kids monitored and taken care of a little bit. And at one point, actually one of the best things I did ever was I actually got in contact with my bully's parents, and we had a meeting, me and my parents and his parents. And it wasn't anything like, oh, your kid did something horrible, he's a bully, this is bad, fix it. It was the conversation about kind of what was going on. And at the end of it, we weren't best friends, but we were closer. We understood each other. And I think we bonded over a fushigi ball, which is a little toy. And then, the bullying from that kid kind of went away. And that was the best thing I ever did,
Yeah, I mean, that's I really appreciate you sharing that story, because something as simple as just a conversation can be so monumental in combating bullying. And I appreciate you, Hudson, for having the courage to share that, because, as you know, there are lots of kids who look up to you. They see you on TV. So for you to speak out about it, it's important. And with that said, growing up from those experiences, are there some things that you wish that you knew, that you could, some certain tools or strategies that you can use to help, other younger kids who may be in those situations?
I think I wish someone just told me that everything they're saying and everything that I heard from other people that was insults and such, it means nothing. I used to take everything that people said to me to heart, and I'd go home and I'd be upset about it. They called me fat, they called me ugly, whatever. I'd sit at home and wallow in their words. But now, thinking about it, I wish someone just told me everything they're saying doesn't matter. What really matters is how you feel about yourself. If you think you're fat and ugly, that's the issue, not the fact that they're saying it. So confidence was something I never really had. And I wish someone just told me to keep your chest up, keep your head up, and ignore them. Because in the future, if they continue down this path, the only direction they're going towards is destruction, self-destruction. If I focused on myself back then and decided just to keep on pushing forward and instead of keeping it all in, the things I could have done besides overcoming the bullying, I could have gotten better grades or gone to better situations. And I think what happens when you're bullied is you kind of fall into a cycle of pain, and it's almost harsh words, but it's a waste of time. And I think I wish someone just told me to just ignore them and move on and forget about it, because it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. And Celia, what about you? What was your experience like? Did you experience bullying growing up?
I also grew up in New York City, well, specifically in Brooklyn, but I remember something that my uncle has always taught me as a kid. He always said, sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words can never hurt me. And I actually carry that quite with me. And my parents are like, here's the thing, if you get bullied in school, make sure you speak up. So I'm always kind of the loud one in school. So I end up sticking up for a lot of my friends. I think it's also like a thing with like an Asian upbringing, at least for people around my age. A lot of my friends' parents will be like, just keep your head down, don't speak up, and just go home. Like, you know, walk away, don't get into trouble or don't cause trouble. And my parents are almost the opposite. They're like, if you get bullied, speak up. Talk to an adult, talk to someone about it, and talk to us about it. And they're like, if you need to defend yourself, I'd rather you defend yourself than getting hurt. And I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up being the one defending all my friends in school. I remember one day in junior high school, my friend, who's also an Asian guy, was trying to bring his lunch to the lunch table where we all sat. And this guy named Tommy and Nelson basically sandwiched him and was squeezing him, and he was shaking and about to cry. And I went to all my guy friends. I'm like, guys, come on, we got to go help Allyn. And they go, no, Celia, I'm a dude. They're going to beat me up in the bathroom. You do it. And I was like, okay, well, fine, I will. So I went up first. I told the teacher, and then I got called the tattletale. And then I went up, I'm like, yo, stop bullying. I was like, you can't do that. Meanwhile, there's like Nelson was like 6 foot tall, and Thomas is like a really big like football player, like S guy. And they're like, what do you want? I was like, do you want to fight? I'll fight you. And they're like, you're weird and you're so loud. And I was tiny. So then they just walked away. But like throughout those years, I was one of the few people in class that are Asian that would defend and that would speak up. And I think it was because of my upbringing and what my parents had taught me and my uncle. And then like fast forward to high school, I was in this program called Junior Marine Corps. So we had to wear uniforms every Wednesday. And when I was taking a bus from home to school, I was a new kid. I transferred my sophomore year, and I used to get made fun of because I was wearing full on uniform. Mm-hmm. So I was wearing the camis or the camels, and then they would always laugh at me. And I was like, hey guys, stop. Can you stop doing it? And there's a code of respect when you're in uniform. So you can't do a lot, or you can't really fight back per se. So then people are throwing paper balls at me in the bus. And at one point I got mad. I just grabbed a bunch of their paper balls and I threw it back at them. And they're like, what? You want to fight? You want to fight? And then the bus driver stopped the bus and was like, all right, whoever's trying to fight Celia, you got to get out of the bus. And I came back the second day. They were doing that again and again and again. And at one point I got really upset, and I tried to kick the guy out of the bus. It didn't work. I was way smaller than he was. Then this is when it's really nice to have friends that like older upperclassmen friends. And I told an older friend who's like a brother to me, and I was like, hey, every Wednesday, once I'm in this uniform, I'm getting picked on. People are throwing paper balls at me. So after school one day, my older friend pulled a guy apart as we were going to a bus, and he had a really deep talk with him. He's like, you don't bully my sister. You don't do anything. Remember my name. I'm a senior here. I'll get you in trouble. I know everybody in the school. And then he talked to the dean. After that, he kind of left for a couple of weeks, and then he came back with bigger friends onto the bus. And then the bus driver said something, and the bus driver actually made sure I went home and that they all got off the bus first. And then after that, I think someone brought it up to school, because then he wasn't in the same bus as me anymore. But yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned, you are atypically vocal, because I would say generally Asians didn't have the same upbringing as you to have parents encourage you to be vocal and stand up for yourself. So how would you say, especially for younger folks listening right now who are, who are in these situations, how can someone muster up the courage to stand up for themselves?
I always think like first you should tell an adult first, because this like when I was a kid, right, social media wasn't this big of a thing, right? You can't, like, people won't shoot videos. There's like, smartphone wasn't as advanced as like an iPhone we have nowadays. So I would always say tell an adult, protect yourself. And like, if this is going to sound so bad, actually, I always say, like, scream back, yell back, because half the time these bullies are insecure themselves. And that's why they're picking on you. And when you stand up to them, sometimes they're like, hold on. When you're louder, a lot of times, in my experience, when I was the louder one, they're like, okay, they will cause a lot more trouble and they'll get me in trouble. So I'd rather move on.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are good takeaways. Make sure that you share your experiences with authority and then surround yourself with allies. So those are certainly good takeaways. Dr. Chiu, so you are an internationally renowned clinical psychologist who provides therapy to teenagers in Hong Kong and around the world. What would you say are some risk factors that led to the youth experiencing more mental health issues?
That is a great question. Actually, there is a very strong link between bullying and mental health issues. So one of the key things that we look at when we're working with schools in secondary schools around Hong Kong and China and Singapore is looking at the incidence of bullying, because once a kid is being bullied, kind of similar to what Hudson was saying, is that it really hurts their self-esteem and it makes them feel like there's something they're doing wrong that has caused this to happen. And so that's why it can then lead them to have low self-esteem, which also increases their prevalence of depression. So when you look at the rates, typically about 5% of kids might say they feel like life is not worth living, and they will answer that question saying all the time. But if you look at kids who are being bullied, that percentage goes up to 30% almost. So you can see that it really increases the risk a lot when a kid is being bullied.
Gotcha. And as a professional, what would you say are some resources or effective tactics to combat bullying?
One of the things that I think can be unfair is if we expect the child who's being bullied to do something about it. Because when they're being bullied, they can really feel like it's their fault. There's a lot of shame. And especially in the Asian culture, you just don't want to kind of disrupt anything. And so you might want to just keep it to yourself, or you might be afraid that if you say something, it's going to make it worse. And so it's really important for the adults around that kid to be the ones to intervene. And so one of the really important things is just making sure that the adults are checking in on the students, to notice signs, to see what might be going on, and also to have conversations with them, right? And rather than asking like, oh, are you being bullied? Or if something's going on, tell us, because that's really vague and it puts a lot of pressure on the kid to also self-identify as being bullied. So it's almost better to ask the kid to say, tell me about your friends. Is anyone doing something that might be a joke, but is taking it too far? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you ever feel unsafe? So those are better questions to start that conversation.
Got it. Thank you very much for sharing that, Dr. Chiu. Now, Haddie, you are just 11 years old and you are already a role model. We all are so incredibly impressed by your passion for social justice. I wanted to ask you, Haddie, why do you think it's important to fight for social justice and help in dismantling systems of oppression?
So, since I've had the privilege of sharing my thoughts and beliefs at such a young age, it's my responsibility to keep going. I'm only 11, so I have some time, but I'm really interested in politics and hoping to be able to have an internship soon where I can learn more about policy and sustainable change. I am most interested in racial justice, LGBTQ rights, and the education system.
That's incredible. And what made you so passionate about empowering these marginalized communities?
So I see how my younger siblings are internalizing messaging about gender and race and how they are learning about their own identities. In our house, we have a lot of conversations about racial justice, and I know it's important for them to learn how to decolonize their thinking at a young age. Our parents give us frameworks to understand equity and oppression from a really young age, and we are all held accountable to understand, notice, and call it out.
You are so amazing. I don't have enough words to share with you what I think of you, the world that I think of you. You certainly give all of us hope, Haddie, for you to put your skills, your talents, and your efforts in such meaningful work. We thank you for that, really. And you are certainly a role model, and we can't wait to see all the more meaningful work that you'll be doing for not only the AAPI community, but society at large. So thank you. Celia, I want to turn it back to you. You kind of made headlines earlier during the pandemic. You've made a name for yourself as a fierce social justice activist, and you proudly utilize your platform to speak out against hate in all forms. And especially during this pandemic, you were very public about denouncing the term, quote, Chinese virus. Can you tell me what your experience was like being a part of that kind of contentious debate? And also, what was the reception or the backlash like for you?
I have to say, I think luckily I didn't get any backlash. There's more people that were more supportive than not. I really thought, like, you know, in the beginning when like COVID first started, and I was like, oh man, I wonder how this is going to be perceived, right? Since it's coming from China. And literally one of the first video I saw, and I posted, which went viral on my account, but I didn't shoot that video, was someone was on the subway and an Asian guy was standing there, and this man got so mad at him and would start spraying him with Febreze, right? And calling him like, you know, get out of here, get out of the train, you're 30, you know, like, get away from me, you're sick. And I retweeted that on my Twitter, and then it kind of just blew up. And during the same time, it inspired my friend from the IW group. And he goes, I saw the video you post, and I saw that you're saying that it's not okay. And he was like, I'm thinking about starting this campaign. It's called Wash the Hate. Wondering if you're down to join me. I was like, of course. He was like, I just have a feeling that this is going to get worse. And he was like, I want to develop PSAs, you know, tell people that it's not okay to discriminate against people based on their skin color and perception of that, you know, a virus came from this country. And literally the day we dropped is the day that our ex-president said, called it a Chinese virus. It was literally right on time. And we're like, oh my God, everything is like falling into place where he predicted. He was like, everything just happened. And then people are getting attacked, and we're like, we can't stay silent. We can't be like, Asians are always known to be like, oh, the model minority, they don't speak up and they just kind of keep their head down, like I was saying before, and walk away. And I was like, no, we got to stand up for our people and let them know that this is not okay, and educate people. And so once we launched a campaign, I've actually gotten a lot of support. Like my fellow actor friends were like, what can I do? And I was like, can you shoot a video and talk about hate and how it's not okay? Because as Asian, we'll be screaming into an echo chamber. We need people from all ethnicity and allies to help us spread the message, which was amazing because they did that. And the campaign just got bigger and bigger.
Wow, that's incredible. And speaking of kind of breaking that model minority stereotype, Hudson, you played a very notable character on ABC's hit show Fresh Off the Boat. Did you have any challenges playing that role? And do you think that it helped kind of shine a light on Asian Americans in a different light?
I mean, I didn't have any challenges playing Eddie. I think one thing is that character is a lot like who I am. So there wasn't too much acting involved. But yeah, I think one thing it did was one thing I've always said is the main root of problems comes from lack of education. And so what this show did, and what its main purpose that I think is that it educated people. It kind of showed people of all races, all genders, whatever, that, you know, Asian Americans are not some crazy different breed of people. They're human. And, you know, all the jokes that are made on Fresh Off the Boat can be related to whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever. And so I think one thing that Fresh Off the Boat did, and my character did, is it kind of showed people that Asians are relatable. Asians are like cool and they're normal. And it's like, you know, there's nothing too, exotic about Asians. We're just humans. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Go ahead.
I wanted to add something before and what everyone else was saying. I also wanted to warn people about social media. I think, especially for being bullied, social media is not a very safe place to be. In many ways, social media is more of a weapon than a tool. In the case of politics, our president used Twitter as a main weapon to attack people, shut people down, and even incite a riot on the Capitol building. And in the same way, people use social media to spread hate. Even though it is often used to spread love, I think more often than not, it is, scary, dangerous, and hurtful to be on social media too often. So if you find yourself, being attacked online, just limit the amount of usage. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Thank you for that. And on that note, we're going to be wrapping up the panel very shortly. Is there anything else that anyone else on the panel would like to add?
I would want to say take a self-defense class. I think it's really, really, really helpful for everyone. And just know it might be bullying, it might be anything else. Out in the street, you're walking around, you get attacked. I think that if everyone has a self-defense lesson or know how to defend yourself, that's a great way to protect yourself.
Got it. Totally agree with that. Dr. Chiu, Haddie, anything else that you guys would like to add?
I would like, if anyone who is experiencing bullying, to know that it has nothing to do with who you are to cause all of this to happen. And so I think it's so important for that to remember, because sometimes when you are experiencing bullying, victimization, you can really just start to question everything you're doing, and you really start to think, oh, maybe I'm bringing this onto myself. And so I just want all the young people to know that it really has nothing to do with them and everything to do with the other person who is perpetuating the violence.
Got it. Thank you for that. And Haddie, any last minute remarks?
I would really like to add that I think including youth voice on panels is really powerful, because we are often overlooked because of our ages, but really we're the closest to solutions. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And also, I'd like to mention that those of us who have experienced bullying, or we know someone who may be going through that experience, there are resources out there, particularly the organization Act to Change. They've been, again, working to address bullying, especially in the AAPI community, and they provide support and resources. And you can definitely check them out on their website. It's acttochange.org. And more importantly, we want you guys to know that you are not alone, and together we can make a difference. And the more that we talk about it, like what we're doing tonight, the more we learn about it, the sooner and closer we can, put a stop to bullying. And also, lastly, Act to Change, along with the Smithsonian and the Daniel K. Inouye Institute, we're launching a campaign. It's called the #Kindness Heals Art campaign. And there we will be showcasing art submissions from youth ages 12 to 18. And about 8 to 10 artists will have the chance to meet the global internet superstar Bretman Rock. So if you can please check out their website for more information. And also, again, Act to Change is a nonprofit organization trying to do good and uplift our community. So whatever we can do to help this organization, because it does help our community, which includes donations and also following them at Act to Change on all social media platforms. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for their time in participating in this panel. Very thoughtful, meaningful, and productive conversations this evening. Thank you so much. And at this time, I'm going to toss it back over to Charlie.
Allyn, thank you so much for just an incredible discussion about such an important project. We'd like to really thank all the panelists as well as our partners at Act to Change, especially Joseph Canaria and Rebecca Lee, who were so instrumental in making this panel discussion happen. We'd also like to thank our partners at the Asian World Film Festival and George Shemshun for partnering with us on this really incredible film. We would also like to thank Janet and Derek for a really insightful conversation about an amazing film. We'd also like to encourage people to please join with us, become a member of Asia Society, either Los Angeles or our global member. Please consider making a donation to help us to put on these types of programs. We make these programs available for free for everybody. And there's information on the slide where you can join or make a donation. We'd also like to thank our promotional partners, New Filmmakers Los Angeles and Chinese and Entertainment. And again, real kudos to the Asian World Film Festival and Act to Change for making this an amazing program, and for our inaugural launch at Asia Society at the Movies. And again, I'd like to also thank our partners in New York, Michelle Yu and Maplethorpe, and everybody in New York who's made this an incredible success. So thank you again, and we hope you will join us for the next installment on March 5th. So thank you and have a wonderful evening. Good night.